gastronomic treasure. One of the most famous sayings of the Tuscan food and wine tradition is, "Nothing is thrown away from the pig," in the sense that the pre-war peasants, if they had a piglet, would use every part, even the blood. Of the pig, not only the meat is used, good for preparing the most varied dishes, but also the rind, good to eat accompanied with beans, the bristles, used for making brushes, and the fat, otherwise known as sugna, good for making lard as well as the countless for other uses. In the past, pork suet was used to make the so-called tallow candles, which economically replaced the more expensive wax ones. The characteristic of tallow candles that they are brown in colour and that when they are burned, they produced a disgusting smell. Burnt fat, just imagine. And blood, what do you do with it? Throw it away? Not even for a dream. And here is the birth of the black pudding, a sort of cured meat widespread in many areas of the peninsula, but whose tradition reaches its peak in Tuscany. It is a typical pork blood sausage inlaid with grasili, which is produced in two varieties, with grapes and without grapes. It is preferable without because the sweetness of the grape alters the savoury taste. An extremely nutritious, caloric, iron-rich food, a centuries-old tradition, typically prepared in the winter season, the one in which the pig is killed. There is a certain information of its traditional preparation since the early Middle Ages, around in the year 1000. Its bizarre name owes it to the method of preparation, miletto, which obviously means badly tied, refers to the fact that the mixture stuffed into the casing is tied semi-full, therefore badly tied, to prevent it from bursting during boiling. Among the most ancient and deeply rooted traditions of rural Italy, we find the breeding of pigs for family consumption. Up until the 1950s and 1960s, pigs were raised domestically in the countryside. Then, starting from that decade, they moved onto industrial farms aimed at the mere perspective of profit. For centuries, pork has been the pantry of many families, a guarantee of fat and protein. In fact, up until a few decades ago, pork was the main and perhaps the only source of animal protein in a mainly vegetarian diet, and not by choice. The meat was consumed exclusively during celebrations and holidays, and not always. To make a brief leap into the past, wealthy families who had the opportunity to buy a piglet, usually at the village fairs, entrusted to a farmer who raised it on his own farm, feeding it naturally, mostly with harvest waste. The killing of the pig generally took place between the months of December, January and February, the cold period of the year, when it was believed that the animal had reached his full maturity, i.e. it greatly exceeded 1.5 quintals in weight. The technique required that the pig be divided into two equal parts, one half for the owner and the other half to the farmer. Then, when the era of the masters ended, the peasants began to independently raise the pig, and when it was killed, the custom of sharing the meat with the whole family and often also with neighbourhood spread as a reason of celebration and sharing. After the killing of the pig, a part of the meat was eaten fresh, while the remaining part had to be kept for several months. In an era where there were no freezers or chemical preservatives, the mastery of working and drying the meat acquired vital importance. The term nocinera means both that the art of processing and slaughtering pork by the butcher, a real professional hired by the families who raised these animals, and the shop where he prepared and sold all the products derived from processing. Although these terms are now in common use throughout Italy, it is easy to guess their origin. The use of the term nocino is very ancient. There is evidence since the year 1000 of the extreme skill of men coming from Norcia and the neighbouring areas of province of Perugia in the slaughtering and processing of pork. They had to complete a period of apprenticeship and other pork butchers' shops in which they learned such skills in meat processing that, in some not rare cases, even allowed them to carry out their own surgical interventions. Even today, in those territories, this tradition is alive, carried on by small companies that work the meat as in the past. With unchanged passion and skill, there are many cured meats that are part of the Norcina tradition, and each of these has its own recipe and processing and maturing procedure. Pork in Italian recipes. Not just cured meats and sausages. In Italy, pork is a protagonist of many traditional recipes and dishes, with the different cuts, preparations ranging from appetizers to main courses through pasta, risotto, and various first courses can be made. Bolognese sauce. Let's start with one of the most loved dishes in Italy, one of the best known in the world, ragu alla bolognese. To prepare it, a piece of sausage or pork cannot be missing, and it gives the sauce an even more intense flavor. Cotechino and lentils. We continue with cotechino and lentils, another great classic, one of the protagonists of the Christmas holidays. Who hasn't eaten it at least once during the New Year's Eve dinner? Puglian bombette. Bowler hats are a real cult. The pork recipe is one of the must of a typical Apulian cuisine. For those unfamiliar with them, these are pork meat rolls stuffed with caciocavallo and bacon. Pork meat in exotic recipes. As we were saying, not only in Italy does pork meat have an important place in the kitchen, there are many exotic recipes based on pork, many of which have also achieved great popularity. Let's see what they are. The pulled pork. Pulled pork is a typical preparation of American cuisine. Thanks to a marinade and slow cooking, a very soft and tasty meat is obtained, which is often served inside a sandwich. The pork ramen. A typical soup of Japanese cuisine, ramen is one of the most popular exotic dishes in recent times. There are many versions, and one of the most common and widespread is generally prepared with noodles, meat broth, eggs and pork, flavored with soy sauce or miso. Sarmale. Maybe you didn't know, but in Romania, the typical dishes on December the 25th are in fact almost based on pork. Among the most famous we find sarmale, minced meat rolls wrapped in cabbage or vine leaves in summertime. Then there are the pifti, garlic jelly with the pig's feet, ears and head inside. The sorik, washed and salted pork skin. The toba, a very large sausage containing the pig's innards and seasoned with mustard, pepper, spices and herbs. And the grata de porc, roast pork. Romanians take the famous saying very seriously. Sweet and sour pork, Chinese recipe. The Chinese cuisine lovers have already come across sweet and sour pork, a traditional Chinese recipe based on battered pork cooked with peppers, pineapple, and sweet and sour sauce. Chicharron. Chicharron is a crunchy and quite caloric snack made from fried pork tenderloin. Originally from Spain, it is a very popular dish in South and Central America and the Philippines. Tonkatsu. Tonkatsu is a typical dish of Japanese cuisine. It is a sort of pork cutlet, 1 or 2 centimeters high, breaded, fried and then cut into small pieces and served with various ingredients.